All right, I think I'm gonna play my course, Rosemont Country Club, and talk a little bit about design. So yeah, this was on Scottish's plot. I think most folks familiar with the contest knew what the requirements were on this course. Nothing really too onerous. Essentially, you had to have your clubhouse return after 9 holes. You had to return to the clubhouse after 9 holes. There was a village you had to kind of maintain, and you couldn't have holes that played across the road. So yeah, I'll kind of go. I guess at first I'll go over kind of where I decided to put stuff. I've been working at this for a while, so I don't exactly remember where I was to begin with. I guess I noted a few features here. There was this large ridge over here where I have kind of like the 18th tee, the ninth tee, 18th tee, 17th green, um, and then like 16 kind of plays back down it towards the clubhouse that I've got over in the corner there. Um, I guess I tried more central clubhouse locations, but I just didn't like what I was getting with my routing. So my routing actually does cross the road 4 times, and it does it all in the same spot. So I created this sort of halfway house, just as sort of like a central hub for the routing. Um, and then on the other side, and I did decide to sort of plant across the road. I wanted a reasonably it's a pretty open plot, but not as open as some of the other ones. I figured it might be a little more visually distinctive if I did that. The other thing I noticed is that there were a couple of ridges that, like this one here, and then another one right here, that were kind of an awkward distance from the road, so they wouldn't necessarily be easy to incorporate. So I just decided to incorporate blind tee shots. What's up, Ryan? Glad you could stop in. So anyway, I know I usually play without the scout can, but I'm gonna go ahead and use it in this round because it'll probably be a little easier to talk about stuff I did. Um, so one basically just plays clear across this sort of edge of the plot, long par five, with the green on the other side of the creek. Um, so you can, if you have a longer driver and the wind isn't into you, you can clear that bunker. You just got to be a little careful of that other bunker there. So this fairway is kind of shared with the first hole. Hey, Matt. I don't know if I have enough of a tailing wind to get home in two. Well, yeah, I think it's helping enough. I can make the carry. I have actually gotten home in two with driver off the deck where it can bounce across the creek because the creek is fairly narrow. Hey Troy, what's happening? Um, so this pin is fairly accessible. The one in the front left, I believe that's pin one. It actually kind of makes sense to lay up to that one because if you're long right or just long, you're not really going to have a trivial two putt. So let's go ahead and we'll just see what 3-wood does here. It may not get there, but we'll give it a shot. Oh, we're in the water. Well, is it going to let me drop on the little island? Yes. So yeah, you can see there's also OB long if you just kind of recklessly bash away at the green. There's several holes with OB in play, but I'd say except in maybe one case, it's pretty easy to avoid. Hey, Blind Wolf, it's going well. I'm just thought I'd kind of walk you guys through some of my thought process with this course. All right, I think we'll escape with our par. I spoke too soon. That was a terrible putt. What plot did I have? I had Scottishes. I know it looks pretty different from the other ones. Although I think I think Blind Wolf had this green site. Yeah, the one that's like in the little crook of the creek. I think he had this mound sort of planted with rough and everything, whereas I put fairway over it. So I think this wind is pretty favorable for me. There is a pin in the front there where it's kind of a fun game to like see if you can actually have the willpower to lay up on like a where it's like 285 to the pin. Into the wind, this is pretty tricky though. If you do have a long driver though, or a long 3-wood, you could probably like loft it. And then if the wind's coming in from the right, you really do kind of have to flirt with the trees. And I totally put it in the wrong spot. Basically, I said I wanted to make it so if you kind of overcooked your drive or pulled it, it'd just kick off those mounds further left, and you just have this really tough flop or chip back down the hill towards the water. Try a spinny flop, see how that works. And so the creek wall, I mentioned in my thread that I was looking a lot at Lanark Golf Club, which is outside Philly. It was recently renovated by Brian Schneider, and it's like I liked how kind of disorderly the creek bed was. Like it looked like in certain areas they had like little bits of stone retaining wall. Others it was just kind of grass. Kind of like as if they put retaining wall where they only needed it. And not just have not just have a rock or a wooden wall the whole way. Yeah, I managed to. I think because I was willing to take on those blind tee shots. I think that really gave me a lot more flexibility. So I have quite a few, sort of 480 plus par 4s. All my par 5s are long. Although some of them play pretty short, like 16 and 18 play way downhill. And I don't think I have any overly uphill holes. I think 5 is the most uphill, and that's maybe like 20 feet uphill. So this 3 is like, this ridge short of the green here was actually one of the first features I keyed on. And when the pin's in the front, it's pretty fun because you can try and you got this angled ridge, and sort of the question I'm asking is, can you kind of trundle like a 5-wood or something over the ridge? This green site has softened out a lot since I first laid it out. It was a lot more extreme to begin with. Okay, so I'm kind of in between clubs here. Maybe for fun we'll just punch a driver. That should kick left for us. It's not going to get up there, though. All right, so I know Axel's course had a hole kind of playing up this alley, but it wasn't. It was a par 4, I think. So this is an uphill par 5. It plays the longest on the course. So I've got this diagonal cross bunker. Really, the best play is to try and carry as much of it as you can. If you play right, the hole's going to be a little longer, and you can see you're going to have an uneven stance. You do have to worry about the OB. If you play left of it, you're probably going to catch this slope, and it's going to kick you to the left, and you're going to have to hit it around this tree. Although you can, the bunker is clearable. It becomes much trickier when this hole plays into the wind. I have my sort of 285 driver, and I managed to carry it. Okay, and the pin in the front here, this is kind of the albatross pin. Obviously, if you miss right, that's no good. Yeah, and I didn't end up pressing it right up against the OB. That it felt kind of gimmicky. When the pin's in the back, if you just kind of wail away and aren't careful, you could go out of bounds. So the front pin, obviously, you want to kind of be left. Like left, it leaves you with a pretty easy chip shot if you're not going for it in 2. But if the pin's in the back, you definitely want to be further right, which means you gotta play closer to the out of bounds. So yeah, I think we can. But this is a pretty easy play. Just sort of that front left bunker's not too bad. Yeah, so this is where, my plot's kind of different from a lot of the other ones in that, it's not as wide open, so I sort of, I hid some stuff with trees. I also switched out the shops. I just didn't like the neon green and blue signs. It just didn't fit my eye. Yeah. And then I kind of sort of in the background, you got some, sort of high-rise apartment buildings as you get closer to the skyline. And you may have noticed that I actually did replicate the skyline closer to, actually on plot, because with all the trees I had, you couldn't see any of those buildings. So I just built the city closer to my plot. That should come back. Yeah. Easy 4, as long as you don't completely screw up the tee shot when the pin's in the front there. Okay, so now we're crossing the road. And yeah, so I mentioned that I kind of had this was that other ridge that I just decided to hit blind tee shots over. So you may notice that I kind of cut bunkers into the ridge there so that they're in line with the fairway bunkers that are blind, just to kind of mitigate it somewhat. But I think this is either 4 or this hole are the most uphill holes on my plot. So So yeah, this part of the plot you can see is a lot more wide open. I've got this sort of, this is 13 on the left, this is 5, this is 6, all kind of sharing one big fairway. And you can just see the pin on that elevated green in the distance. Yeah, if it's not into the wind and you play at your tee shot in the right spot, it's not quite as blind as this. You have that carry bunker, but you know, it's like 500 yards uphill, so I wanted to make sure that this green was accepting of a ground shot along the ground. And one thing that I found that was I played around with a lot that wasn't super easy was kind of how to tie in the green surrounds, because obviously I have a lot of short grass everywhere, but I didn't, because I wanted my jagged edged bunkers, and I just for aesthetic reasons I wanted heavy rough around them. So figuring out what to do where the bunkers were like close to the green was, it took some experimentation, but ultimately I decided that I'd do a light rough collar on the green and then just heavy rough going into the bunkers. So yeah, this green's a little quieter than some of the other ones. I mean, it's not flat by any means, but this par 4 plays the longest on the course, so it is reasonably quiet, which will kind of make sense when you see the next one. So yeah, this was I kind of just felt compelled to put a green in here. So this was, it just felt, I thought that I'd have like a par 3 where it would approach it from over here, but it was just in such an awkward location for that I decided to make it part of a long par 4 where you're essentially approaching it that hollow side on. That little notch in the front is my doing. I kind of lowered the ground a little bit there. This hollow was pretty much there. I accentuated it a little bit. So yeah. So this one's playing downwind with a driver about my distance. You know, you kind of want to play left here, but you do have to worry about that tree there a little bit. You can see that if you go right here, you kind of go into this hollow, and you got a long blind shot, possibly from a side hill lie. If you're a bit longer, you can either try and fit a drive it up there into that like little narrow space, or you can kind of hit one in between these two bunkers. Lengthens the hole a little bit. Depending on the hole location, it can give you a slightly better or worse angle. But yeah, this pin's the hardest one on the hole. So I think we'll try and hit a little draw around that tree. Yeah, so this pin's in its own little pocket here. You know, this front one is fun. I think the pin over here is really fun because I remember when I was play testing, I hit one. I think it was in that I hit one in like the rough collar, the heavy rough collar of this bunker here, and I managed to just sort of lash at a fairway wood, and it just trundled over this mound and then caught that slope and rolled within like a foot of the hole or something. Yeah, downwind. This hole's less fun when it's downwind because you just have like a short iron in. It'd be nice. It'd be nice if I could find a way to make that make this work on a par 5, but the green site just, you know, it's not in a location that's conducive to designing a par 5. All right, so then, yeah, I kind of saw this little raised plateau here and thought it might be a nice downhill par 3. So this is the last. We're gonna head back over the road, across the road after this one. It is a very, you can see it's a very big green. I think it's just because I saw all these like sort of disparate features. Like I'll admit I kind of built this up a bit, but like I saw that fall off right. There was that fall off right there. That, I mean, I've kind of accentuated a little bit, but so it just kind of made sense to make a short par 3 with a really big green. So then, you know, to make it interesting, I just threw in all these ridges. So this pin's, you know, kind of fun. It's in this little groove. I don't really have the right club for this. That could be trouble. That is trouble. I think with a little spin, this isn't the hardest chip in the world, though. Unless it lands on the downslope. We're good. Okay, so yeah, so now we're like teeing off sort of right next to the halfway house. So yeah, here's the, you know, the ridge that I had to figure out. I just kind of decided we're just gonna play over it a couple times. So I kind of did what I did on 5. I cut some bunkers in line with those ones, and then I just played around with planting, found some grasses that seemed to mix well together, and then I did. I took the bushes and like the yellow flowering grasses. I was sort of trying to approximate Scotch broom. Kind of like how some of the bunkering at Marion has, like in the quarry, has Scotch broom growing out of the face. So I did that on that ridge, and then you can see we've essentially got like an Alps punch bowl combination here. Again, this hole's awesome when it plays into the wind. And I'm trying to remember what cardinal direction that is. I want to say it's an east wind, but I'm not positive. It's when it'd be right to left on the first tee. I think that's probably the most fun wind, but a lot of holes, you know, there are a lot of holes that play really cool in other winds too. So I think the course plays really well and differently in a variety of winds. So you can see the fairway kind of has this little ridge in it. So if you kind of hug this bunker, you kind of stay in that on that top part, which, you know, gives you a shorter shot in. With my length driver, that left bunker isn't really in play, but it's really just kind of there to keep bombers honest, or if it's playing downwind, you can't just wail away down the left. So yeah. Yeah, obviously this green is not does not have a lot of pins. I just put two pin. I put pin 1 and 3 back here, 2 and 4 right here. Yeah, Marion's a beautiful, beautiful property. I've had the privilege of visiting it. I haven't played it, but I got to walk it, which is pretty cool. All right, then I designed Darby Creek shortly thereafter. All right, so yeah, you can land it short, which is nice. You know, if you're in between clubs, you just got to be a little careful. If you kind of, you know, catch too much of that slope, it'll kind of go clear across the green and go down to that hollow. So yeah, I think I usually a 9-iron works pretty well. Oh, I slowed that one though. That's gonna end up in the wrong punch bowl. No, no, yeah, it's gonna fall down. Gonna go down there. So yeah, that's the third green we're playing back towards. So, and yeah, 9's gonna head back toward the clubhouse there. Man, usually I'm several under par on the front 9. I'm not that good, but all right. So then this hole plays fairly short, right? It is 415, but it's downhill. Generally, you can make the carry here. Into the wind, it becomes a little iffier. You know, the further right you play, you know, you can see that gives you a better angle. If you bail way left and the pin is you know, kind of on the left side of the green, you're gonna have to deal with that tree. You can also play down over here, right? This is hole 18. Not trivial, you know, if you miss it, you know, and the fairway does slope towards the creek a little bit. So it's not trivial. That does give you a better angle to a lot of pins, although it does lengthen the hole, and you got to make sure that you're going to be able to get clearance past that tree. Usually when I'm play testing, I just kind of hit a driver down here, and the wind has died down enough that I should be able to make it. Yeah, this pin's pretty gettable here. The back left one is certainly a challenge. But yeah, designing on this plot was so refreshing after major, where I felt like I just had to, you know, I had to make it hard all the time. So being able to design all these wide fairways and kind of funnel pins and stuff felt liberating. All right, so 10. This is basically follows Axel's 10th hole. His green is further to the right. It's kind of like right over where you can see I've got a green over there on the right. That's the 11th hole. That's par 3. That's playing back up the hill. So I believe Axel's 10th green is just kind of sort of just beyond that. So this is where I'll zoom out a bit here. This is where the property juts inwards. Right, so so that was the mulch plot border there, where the out of bounds is. So I decided to go right along it. And I planted it with trees, so you can see that if you play close to this bunker, you got a nice angle in there. If you play further left, you got to deal with this, you know, this ridge here and uneven stances. Yeah, so this green is like right where your clubhouse is. And I think your 18th green is sort of in the neighborhood of where my 11th green is there. But yeah, so if you play left, you're going to have to manufacture something. The green is generally set up to accept a shot from the left, so if you just kind of play left and then right, you got this sort of awkward pitch to a tiny green. So yeah, I usually just play one down the right side here. Alright, and we can get around the trees. Although this hole when it's not downwind, it can be a bit of it can be a three-shotter depending on where the pin is. And I didn't get far enough left, so I've got to hit my chip over this mound here. All right. I believe Honey Badger had a par 3 similar to this. I think his actually played up here onto where my 12th tee is. But yeah, Q kind of helped me find this. I can't remember what I had going on before this, but this like 11 and 12 bit here was Q helped me route that. So yeah, this shortish par 3. This pin is kind of silly, but you can like land one up on the bank here and just kind of feed it in there, which is kind of fun. Obviously, if you're aggressive with this one, you could find some trouble. So I think I'll just take my par here. Nah, that's not going to get up there. I could have gotten silly and tried to loft an 8-iron, but I wasn't going to do that. All right, so 12 took some thinking, but I'm actually pretty happy with how it turned out. So yeah, I think this is Blind Wolf. This is where your driving range is, I believe. Unless I'm confusing yours with Honey Badgers. I don't think so, though. So yeah, so it's like a short little par 4. Obviously, you can see when the pin's in the front, it's just 282. If you can hit it over here, you got a pretty straightforward chip, except when the pin's in like that back left, like sort of back middle-ish. But otherwise, it is a fairly straightforward chip, but you do have to worry about the out of bounds. This little pot bunker here kind of keeps you honest if you're like trying to hit a 3-wood sort of short left to leave you with something like this. You can kind of like, if you're kind of got a longer, if your driver is way too long, then if you have like a 260 3-wood, you can like kind of loft it and maybe partial it and get it on there. But then if you screw up the tempo, there's a good chance you'll go out of bounds. Or you know, you miss like up on this hill here, which is, you know, also not good. So honestly, I think I'm just going to hit a 3-wood here. That front bunker's not a terrible miss when the pin is here. As long as you can finesse it. It's basically just a short uphill bunker shot. That when the green's not sloping away from you where the hole is, so. Yeah, kind of like that. So you can see we've returned to the halfway house, which means we're about to cross the road again. So 13, this plays parallel to number 5. So I tried to kind of make these a little bit distinctive. So you see how 5 is sort of on an elevated green there, whereas this one is sort of in this hollow. This pin is kind of mean. That back right one is a little more, is kind of the fun one. So yeah, we're playing over that same ridge. The further left you play, the longer the hole is. And I think you kind of end up with a less, your chance of getting a level lie probably isn't as good. And obviously you have to deal with like the slope beyond this bunker here if you're further left. I didn't get very high winds, so maybe that's making this play a little less interestingly than it could. That's gonna find the hollow. I didn't give that enough respect. If you're gonna play at it, you gotta be on, your tempo's gotta be on point. Alright, so 14 is probably the most awkward tee shot. If it's downwind, you really got to worry about, or you have a longer driver, you really got to worry about running out of fairway. You can see that it slopes pretty hard down to the right there. If you go through, you're going to be in the light rough, which, you know, isn't the end of the world. If you're a longer hitter, you can try and loft up a 3-wood over those trees and kind of go down here. Right, or you can hit a draw, or you could just try and hit a straight shot. Of course, you can always go right of that bunker at the corner. And perfect. So, yeah, the green is something like it's sort of like a double plateau. I've kind of created a few more random humps and bumps. But yeah, if it's back here, you know, it's kind of perilous. If you get if you're just a little bit to the right, you're okay. Like, you know, you'll hang up in the rough, but if you really put a lousy swing on it or you misjudge the wind, and you can hit that bank and just bounce out of bounds into the road. When the pin's on the left like this, OB, not really in play. And you can see this pin's in a little hollow there. Yeah, and you can sort of just see over into the town there if you peer across the bridge. This could be awkward. I stayed up on the slope a little bit. Yeah. These pins, a lot of these pins took a lot of fine tuning because they were, you know, when you put pins in like little hollows where there's two opposite slopes that meet, you can get some awkward double breaker putts. Okay, so 15. This is the last par 3 on the course. Yeah, you can see that if you go left here, you'll catch that slope and go in the bunker. This hole was actually originally one that I wasn't all that fond of, but I just kind of kept massaging it, and it's such that like you can run a shot, you can run a shot in there. You just got to be really precise. I think with this wind, it's not super complicated when the pin's in the back there. Front pins are interesting. Like if you want to just play long, you can. But if you want to land one close to a front pin, you got to kind of flirt with the bunkers in the front. So yeah, that's 17 over there. 17 green. So I think it's probably worth commenting on the lengths of my par 3s. I can call up the scorecard here. One thing that I, had realized with my routing is I kind of have like 2 short par 3s and 2 long par 3s and nothing in the middle. So you can see that 3 is 242, 7's 132, 11's 148, 15's 225. So there's a pretty big gap between 11 and 15. 7 and 11 play pretty differently because 7's downhill and 11's uphill. But I thought, maybe I need to make, say, 15 shorter or something. But I kind of realized that, like, I would be making one of my par 3s worse just to make the scorecard look more balanced. And I realized that that wasn't a worthwhile trade, so I just decided to live with the gap that I had. Okay, so 16, we're going back down the hill. This is we've sort of got this little hogs back here, except I cut a couple bunkers into it that you have to carry. If you make the carry, you get a nice kick forward, and really turns this into very much turns this into a birdie hole. If you kind of miss off to the right, you can see how it's going to sort of shunt you down that way. So you'll end up with a longer approach that looks a little more perilous. If the wind's blowing right to left, you can actually go around those trees and kind of approach the hole down, like from this direction. And you can actually even take on that tree and try and play left. So this hole's kind of got a bunch of options. Most of the time, unless the wind is unusual, I just kind of play over those bunkers as much as I can. But you can go left here, which to certain pins can give you a good angle. You can go into the 10th fairway as well. That one's usually going to give you something kind of awkward, but you can go over there. You don't have as much stuff to carry. But if you can fit a shot like in between these bunkers here, you can sort of the green's basically a punch bowl, and these will just kind of feed down there. But you do have to worry about that little bunker catching your ball. So anyway, as I was talking, the wind picked up a bit, so I don't know if I'll be able to make the carry. And we'll get a slow. Alright, well, we'll see what... Yeah, 281. It is downhill, though. So yeah, if I can kind of thread my 3-wood into here, it should feed down into that pocket where the green is. But it's into the wind and had an uphill lie. It looks like I'm going to catch the bunker. So yeah, I think I'll probably try and use the sideboards there on the right. Yeah, and we had a pretty easy putt there. Okay, 17. Yeah, for someone with my driver, this shortcut really isn't an option unless it's downwind. So usually I just play safely out to the left here, but you do get a big advantage if you can get up there. It's like basically you have a little flip wedge, whereas here you probably got more like a 7 or 8 iron. And again, you got all the room you want to the left, but you're just going to leave yourself a longer shot to a green that's pretty severe, right? You're doing yourself a huge favor if you can leave yourself a wedge into this green. And I got a slow, and I'm probably going to find the bunker. Well, light rough. Not an easy stance, though. Obviously not being in the fairway, I couldn't put any spin on that, which is kind of necessary. I misread that. Okay, and then 18 we've already gotten a sneak preview of. Yeah, in this wind, you probably want to go here just right of the bunker. Under a lot of conditions, you can carry it, especially if you have a longer driver. But yeah, and you also got to give the creek there some respect. You really don't want to miss the fairway here, though, when it's into the wind, because you got to carry the creek with your second. We should be fine. And this pin's, kind of on the upper tier of the green. Kind of a bit of a tweener here, but we do have a backstop, so I think I'll go with the 3. And that's not staying up. But yeah, when the pin's in the front, you gotta decide how much you want to respect the creek. Obviously, if the pin's on the right, kind of same deal. If you play for the middle of the green and you don't catch that feeder slope, then you'll have a pretty tough pretty tough two putt. Yeah, I actually had the clubhouse was like the first thing I built. I mean, after I routed the course first, of course, but yeah, I just took some of the newer stone buildings and just kind of put them together along with some of the walls. That one never really had a chance. So yeah, there you have it, folks. So hope you enjoy your rounds here. And congrats to my fellow Scottish plot designers. I thought all the ones that have been released so far have been really good and fun to play. So yep, that's all I was gonna stream tonight. So I'll go ahead and sign off now and catch you all later. Take care.